In a quiet suburb of Jackson, Mississippi, the life of the Jackson family appears picture-perfect. Kendra Jackson, a 34-year-old real estate agent, and her 36-year-old husband, Marcus, who runs a construction business, have long settled in this neighborhood. They have been together for over 10 years, and many friends see them as the ideal couple. They own a cozy house with a small garden and a porch where they love to spend their evenings. However, their peaceful life changes when Kendra's younger brother, Jason Carter, moves in with them. Jason, 17 years old, has just started his senior year at the local high school. Kendra had been worried about his behavior since their parents' death in a car accident a few years back, so she invited him to stay with them until he finished school. A few weeks after Jason moves in, Kendra notices how well he gets along with Marcus. They spend a lot of time together, playing video games, hitting the gym, and even discussing Jason's future plans. Marcus has always treated Jason like a younger brother, helping him adapt to the new school and encouraging him to excel academically. Kendra is glad that they have found common ground. Marcus has never been this caring towards others, and his attention toward Jason brings a smile to her face. One evening, she hears them laughing in Jason's room while playing video games. She sighs with relief, thinking that inviting Jason to stay was the right decision. The Jackson family gathers for dinner. The atmosphere at the table is warm and filled with a sense of unity. Jason shares stories about his school day, while Marcus listens attentively, offering advice and sharing his own experiences. As Kendra watches them, she feels pride in both her husband and her brother. They have truly become close, and this seemingly strengthens their family. But that day, Kendra notices something odd. She walks into the living room, where Marcus and Jason are sitting on the couch, looking at something on a phone. As soon as she appears, they fall silent, and Marcus quickly puts the phone in his pocket. A chill runs down her spine, but she brushes it off, deciding it was probably just some guy talk. Days go by. Marcus and Jason grow even closer. Now, they leave the house together in the evenings, telling Kendra they're off to the gym or a movie. Kendra doesn't think much of it, happy that they've found common interests. However, one night, waking up and not finding Marcus in bed, she notices light coming from Jason's room. Approaching the door, she hears muffled voices. "No one will find out, I promise," comes Marcus's voice from behind the door. Kendra freezes, listening, but quickly realizes she's crossing a line. She quietly leaves, chalking it up to a sleepy mind and her worry for her brother. As the days pass, Kendra begins to notice more oddities. Marcus starts spending more time with Jason and even seems to have changed his attitude toward her. He becomes more distant, sometimes irritated when Kendra asks about their plans or where they've been. Jason, too, appears anxious, avoiding eye contact and changing the subject whenever Kendra tries to talk to him alone. One evening, Kendra stumbles upon Jason's gym bag in the laundry room. She's about to pull out the clothes to put them in the wash when a gift box catches her eye. On the box it says, "With love, M." She opens it and finds a small bracelet engraved with the initials J and M. Her heart skips a beat. M, she thinks. Marcus? Something inside Kendra begins to crumble. Her earlier suspicions intensify, and a darker picture starts to form in her mind. Kendra notices that things in the house have changed. She often finds Marcus and Jason together in the living room or kitchen, but their conversations abruptly stop when she enters. They exchange brief glances before sinking into an uncomfortable silence. Kendra feels her internal anxiety growing, but she tries to ignore it, blaming it on the tension of teenage relationships. That evening, as she prepares for bed, Kendra sees Marcus heading toward Jason's room again. It bothers her, as they usually spent this time together. Falling asleep, Kendra can't shake the feeling that she is becoming a stranger in her own home. Marcus and Jason have begun spending more time in Jason's bedroom. A closed door has become their norm, which further alarms Kendra. In the past, there were no secrets in their home. They moved freely from room to room. Now, she constantly encounters a closed door and hushed voices behind it. One evening, coming home earlier than usual, she finds Marcus and Jason in the bedroom, talking in whispers. When Kendra knocks and enters, they fall silent. Marcus looks tense, and Jason avoids her gaze, pretending to work on a school project. She senses a strange tension in the room and starts seriously questioning what is happening between them. Kendra notices that Jason has been using Marcus's phone more frequently. He has his own phone, she thinks as she watches Marcus hand his smartphone to Jason once again. Kendra tries to act unbothered, but inside, she burns with a desire to know what's really going on. She decides to stay alert. Late one evening, when Marcus is sound asleep, Kendra sneaks over to his jacket hanging on the chair in the hallway. With trembling hands, she pulls out his phone. She knows this is an invasion of privacy, but she can't fight the wave of suspicion rising inside her. She unlocks the phone using a code she knows and starts scrolling through the messages. Kendra finds a chat with Jason that makes her blood run cold. The messages are very personal. "I miss you," Jason writes in one. Marcus replies, "Me too, but you know we need to be careful." Kendra can hardly believe her eyes. She continues reading, her hands shaking. Among the messages, she finds arrangements for secret meetings. "Tomorrow after school, as usual," Marcus writes, and Jason replies with a heart emoji. Kendra closes the messenger and carefully places the phone back. At that moment, her heart clenches with fear and pain. She realizes that something far more serious is brewing within their family than she initially thought. Kendra can no longer ignore her suspicions. After accidentally seeing the messages on Marcus's phone, her heart is filled with horror and anger. She knows she must find out the full truth and decides to conduct her own investigation. Late at night, while Marcus is in the shower and Jason has locked himself in his room, Kendra grabs her laptop and sits at the kitchen table. She takes a deep breath, preparing to break into her husband's social media accounts. She recalls the old passwords Marcus used before, hoping he hasn't broken the habit of using the same combinations. After several attempts, her patience pays off. She gains access to his Facebook account. Her fingers tremble as she starts scrolling through his messages. Among the many contacts, she sees Jason's name and freezes. Opening the conversation, she first finds casual messages one might expect between relatives, discussions about school, movies, and sports events. But as she scrolls up, the tone suddenly changes. Marcus sends Jason messages with an intimate undertone. "You looked amazing today," Marcus writes, adding a heart emoji. Jason replies, "You make me feel special." Kendra freezes, feeling her anger turn into something else, horror and disgust. She scrolls further and sees photos Marcus sent to Jason. Some show Marcus smiling, holding the camera in front of himself, while others are more suggestive, taken in bed. In response, Jason sends his photos, which become increasingly revealing. Kendra closes her eyes, trying to process what she's seen, but her mind is overwhelmed by those messages and photos. She feels a storm brewing inside her and knows she needs to dig deeper. She moves on to another social media platform, Instagram, enters the same password, and to her surprise, it works again. She opens the direct messages and sees a long chat between Marcus and Jason discussing their meetups and secret plans. The most chilling moment comes when Kendra finds messages about specific meetings. "Can you meet up tomorrow after school?" Marcus asks. "Of course, Kendra will be at work," Jason responds, adding a winking emoji. In another message, Marcus writes, "I can't wait to see you again," to which Jason replies, "Me too. You make me happy." Kendra feels a cold wave wash over her. She realizes that all of this was happening while she was at work, trusting Marcus to look after her brother. Shock and disgust turn into rage. She can't believe the person she loves and trusts is capable of this. She also sees how meticulously they hid their actions. The messages are filled with hints about being cautious and arrangements to avoid getting caught. Kendra closes the laptop and stands up, staring into the darkness of the kitchen. She knows this is not just casual texting or innocent flirting. She has seen enough to understand that her husband and younger brother are involved in something far more serious. Questions whirl in Kendra's mind. How long has this been going on? Why did Jason get involved? And what now? She decides that she must confront them. She needs to hear from both of them how this happened and why. The shock and pain inside her turn into determination. She will no longer let them play their secret games behind her back. Kendra waits all day to have the conversation. After a night spent reading the shocking messages between Marcus and Jason, She barely keeps her emotions in check. She is ready for this confrontation to change everything. When evening comes, she calls Marcus and Jason into the living room. Marcus looks calm, while Jason is nervous, sensing something is wrong. Kendra sits down on a chair opposite them, crossing her arms over her chest. Her gaze is firm, her voice quivering with suppressed rage. "I want both of you to tell me what's going on," she says, staring them down. Marcus looks at her, clueless, trying to smile. "What are you talking about, honey?" Kendra pulls out the phone, opens the chat, and throws it on the table. "What am I talking about?" she snaps. "About us. About what's happening between you and my brother." The room falls silent. Marcus's face changes instantly, and he realizes that Kendra knows more than he thought. Jason turns pale, his gaze dropping to the floor. Kendra presses on, her voice growing louder. "How long has this been going on? How could you do this to me and my brother?" Marcus tries to find the right words, but the only question in his mind is how to get out of this situation. "Kendra, it's not what you think," he begins, but she cuts him off, slamming her hand on the table. "I saw your messages. I saw your photos and conversations. Don't lie to me," she yells, her eyes filled with tears and rage. Marcus realizes there is no way out. He throws a quick glance at Jason, who sits frozen, and finally begins to speak. "All right. Yes, Jason and I have a relationship, but it's not what you think. We really care about each other." He tries to speak gently, as if this could calm Kendra down, but every word he says only fuels her anger. "Care about each other?" Kendra laughs bitterly, shaking her head in disbelief. "He's just a child. You used him." Marcus stands up and tries to approach her, but Kendra steps back. You broke the law, Marcus. You destroyed everything we had." Marcus continues to defend himself. "Jason and I truly love each other. It's hard to understand, but it's not just lust. I can't explain why it happened, but our feelings are real." Kendra stares at him, unable to believe her ears. How can he say such things? The thought crosses her mind that the man she loved turned out to be a monster she never really knew. She turns her gaze to Jason, who sits in the corner of the couch, clenching his hands into fists. "Jason, tell me the truth," she says, trying to hold back her tears. Jason, trembling, nods. "It started a few months ago. Marcus said our relationship was normal, that I was special." Kendra feels the ground slipping from under her feet. Her little brother was dragged into this, and she didn't notice anything. Rage fills her. She can't hold back any longer. "You're a criminal, Marcus. You took advantage of my brother. You ruined everything," she screams, her voice echoing through the house, causing Marcus to turn pale. He tries to explain himself, but Kendra isn't listening anymore. She feels a surge of desire for justice, the need to protect Jason and seek revenge for the betrayal. The room fills with heavy silence. Kendra realizes that her life has now split into a before and after. That night is a nightmare for Kendra. She barely closed her eyes, replaying everything she learned over and over in her mind. The morning brings no relief, only another wave of pain. Kendra feels a weight on her chest as she makes a decision. She must do something, but what? She looks at Marcus, sleeping beside her, and sees not her husband, but a stranger. At that moment, she wants to run away, but she knows there's no escaping this. She goes downstairs to the kitchen and finds Jason there. He looks downcast, his head bowed. "Morning, Kendra," he says quietly, avoiding her eyes. Kendra remains silent, pours herself some coffee, and sits at the table. She wants to scream, to shatter this silence, but inside her, a storm of emotions is raging. Anger, fear, pain, and helplessness. Throughout the day, Kendra is in a state of complete numbness. She doesn't go to work, preferring to stay home. Several times, Marcus tries to talk to her, but every time he approaches, she raises her hand, refusing to speak. "I need to think," is all she can manage, her voice hollow and hoarse from the sleepless night. By evening, Kendra starts to doubt her initial decision to immediately go to the police. "This is my husband and my brother," she thinks. "How can I betray them?" But at the same time, It becomes clear to her that the situation is far more complex and dangerous than a simple family conflict. Marcus broke the law, and Jason, her younger brother, needs protection. The next day brings a new wave of anxiety. Marcus decides it's time to talk and finds Kendra in the kitchen. "Listen," he begins cautiously, "we can't let this get out. Think about what this will do to our family." Kendra looks at him, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. "You really think I can just forget about this?" she whispers, gripping her coffee cup so tightly that it feels like it might shatter. "It's not what you think," Marcus insists, his voice growing more urgent. "Jason wanted this too. It's not just my fault. Please, Kendra, don't destroy everything over a moment of weakness." He steps closer to her, trying to hug her, but she pulls away sharply. "Weakness?" she repeats, struggling to contain her anger. "You call this a weakness? You destroyed everything we had, and now you want me to just stay silent?" Kendra leaves the house without a word, needing to clear her head and think things through. She walks down the streets, feeling torn apart by conflicting emotions. She realizes that keeping silent makes her complicit in the crime, but at the same time, it's hard for her to accept that she must betray both her husband and her brother. She sits on a bench in the park, nervously running through possible scenarios in her head. When Kendra returns home, she finds Jason sitting in the kitchen. He looks scared and lost. "Kendra, I didn't want things to go this far," he admits, his voice shaking. "But Marcus said it would be okay, that we would be happy." Kendra looks at him, her eyes filling with tears. She can't believe how far things have gone. Her little brother got dragged into this horrible situation, and now he, too, is asking her to stay silent. "Jason," she says quietly, approaching him, "do you understand what happened?" He nods, but there is still a naive look in his eyes, a teenager who doesn't grasp the full gravity of the situation. I don't want Marcus to go to jail," he adds, and Kendra feels her heart breaking. Kendra locks herself in the bathroom to be alone with her thoughts. She knows her actions will decide not only her future but also the fate of Jason and Marcus. Both are begging her to keep the secret, but she knows that this situation has crossed all permissible boundaries. Kendra realizes that, no matter how difficult it may be, she must do the right thing. Kendra decides to hold a final meeting in their home. She can't continue living in limbo and wants to hear everything once again, face to face. She spends the whole day in tension, thinking about how it should go. She calls Marcus and Jason, asking them to come home that evening, stating they need to discuss how to handle the crisis in their family. Marcus agrees, though he senses the coldness in her voice. Jason also comes, nervously awaiting what this conversation will lead to. Marcus and Jason sit at the dining table. Kendra moves around the kitchen, making tea. She tries to look calm, but inside, she's boiling. When she finally sits down, a heavy silence falls over the room. "I think we all know why we're here," Kendra begins, her voice sounding calm, but tinged with anger. "I want to hear what you plan to do next." Marcus leans forward, trying to appear confident. "We can fix this, Kendra," he says. "We just need time." "Jason, he's still young, and I understand we made a mistake. But we can find a way out." "A way out?" Kendra interrupts him. Her voice rises, and an expression of pain and contempt appears on her face. "You think this is just a mistake?" She glares at Marcus. "You think what you did to my brother is just a mistake we should move past and forget?" Jason tries to intervene. "Kendra, please, don't be like this. I wanted this too," he says, his voice trembling. But this only adds fuel to the fire. "You were underage, Jason," Kendra yells, unable to hold back anymore. "You don't understand what he's done to you. This isn't just a relationship, it's a crime." Marcus starts to justify himself. "Kendra, you don't understand the situation. We have feelings, and it was mutual," he responds, but his words sound unconvincing. Kendra looks up, her eyes brimming with tears. "You destroyed my family, Marcus. You took away Jason's innocence and a normal life. And now you're talking about feelings?" The situation quickly spirals out of control. Kendra stands up from the table, her hands trembling. She grabs a glass of water and hurls it against the wall, releasing part of the rage that is consuming her. "You monster," she screams. "You were my husband, and you dared to betray me so horribly." Marcus rises, trying to approach her. "Kendra, calm down," he pleads, but her eyes are filled with hatred. "Don't touch me," she screams, backing away. Jason also stands, fearing that Kendra might do something reckless. "Please, Kendra, let's talk," he begs, but his voice is drowned out by the noise of their argument. Kendra can't take it anymore. She begins to hurl harsh accusations, accusing Marcus of violence and betrayal. "Did you think I would never find out? That you could live in this lie?" she demands, her voice shaking with rage. Marcus, unsure of what to say, remains silent, his eyes downcast. Kendra now sees in him not a husband, but a stranger who has destroyed her life. The tension in the room rises. Kendra feels herself being overwhelmed by waves of anger and pain. She rushes back to the table, tearing off the tablecloth along with the dishes and glasses. "You're a monster," she screams, then collapses to her knees, clutching her head in her hands. Jason, seeing this, also drops to his knees beside her, trying to comfort her, but Kendra pushes him away. Marcus and Jason are in shock, not knowing what to do. Marcus approaches Kendra, reaching out to help her up, but she jerks away. "You have no right to touch me," she hisses. At that moment, they all realize the point of no return has been crossed. The situation has spiraled out of control, and now only time will tell where this crisis will lead. Everything has spiraled out of control. Kendra feels her body start to shake. Anger and pain flood her, and it seems unbearable to hold it all in. Marcus's words continue to echo in her mind. "We can fix this. We truly love each other." Every time she hears this, something inside her breaks. Marcus tries to say something again, but Kendra is no longer listening. She storms into the kitchen, her breathing heavy and erratic. She opens a drawer and sees a kitchen knife, shiny and cold. Without thinking, she grabs it and heads back to the living room. Marcus freezes when he sees the knife in her hand. "Kendra, put it down," he says, fear evident in his voice, though he tries to speak calmly, not to provoke her further. "Stay away from me," Kendra screams, waving the knife menacingly. Jason screams in horror, seeing how dangerous the situation has become. Marcus slowly raises his hands, taking a step forward. "Listen, let's calm down and talk," he says, his gaze trying to hold her focus. But Kendra sees only one thing before her: betrayal, the destruction of her family. She doesn't want to hear a single word he has to say. Marcus takes another step toward her, trying to knock the knife out of her hand. "No!" Kendra screams, lunging forward. They collide, and a struggle ensues. Marcus tries to grab her wrist to disarm her, but Kendra fights back desperately. Jason stands still, paralyzed with fear. "Stop!" he yells, but his voice is drowned out in the chaos of their fight. The kitchen fills with sounds, hits, footsteps, and screams. Kendra feels a surge of rage. She fights with all her strength, trying to break free from Marcus's grip. "You ruined my life," she screams, her voice hoarse and full of pain. Suddenly, in the chaos, Marcus trips and loses his balance. Kendra, not in control of herself, makes a sharp swing with the knife. Everything happens in a split second. The knife plunges deep into Marcus's side. For a moment, there is dead silence. Marcus stops, his eyes widening in pain and horror. He brings his hand to the wound, from which blood immediately begins to flow. "Oh, God," Kendra whispers, her eyes fixed on what she has just done. She drops the knife, which falls to the floor with a dull thud. Marcus slowly drops to his knees, clutching the wound. Jason screams, rushing to Marcus, trying to help him somehow. Marcus collapses to the floor, his breathing ragged and shallow. "Hold on, Marcus," Jason yells, pressing his hands to the wound to stop the bleeding. Kendra stands motionless, her eyes wide open, tears streaming down her cheeks. She can't believe what she has just done. No, this can't be happening," she mutters, grabbing her head. The room fills with the sound of crying and Jason screams. He tries to stop the bleeding, but it's useless. Marcus begins to lose consciousness, his eyes growing hazy. "Please, hold on," Jason pleads, but his words sound hollow. Marcus breathes quietly, then goes still. His hand falls to the floor, and silence envelopes the room. Kendra slowly sinks to her knees next to Marcus's body. She looks at the bloodied knife lying on the floor, feeling the world collapsing around her.